I thought I would bring up a Zen teaching for us this morning, and it's quite a classic, and I hope it's quite an accessible, as much as accessible as these kind of Zen koans or Zen teachings are. So this is from my well-worn copy of the Book of Equanimity. It's case 39, and it's Joshu's bowl washing. And so with these koans, typically in this collection, there's a preface, what's called a preface to the assembly. So it's this is what it's about. It's a little section, a little orientation to what the koan is going to be about. Often points to the main question. Then there's the main case, that's the actual koan, and then there's an appreciatory verse. So this is somebody usually much later who's in a poetic style talking about the koan and often praising it. The reason I bring up so Zen koans, again in brief, are statements about this curious, mysterious reality that we're all involved in called life. Right, and aspects of the principle of living a present life, which are expressed in these koans, but they often or perhaps always are found to be difficult by the intellectualizing mind. Right, so they often appear abstract, contradictory, difficult, downright impossible in language. And it isn't for the sake of confusing people on purpose, right? But rather, we have this dualistic subject-object consciousness, right? Just it's kind of hardwired into us as human beings, right? We're navigating this reality, and we have this operating system, this software that organizes the world so that we can live in it. But this subject-object, the way that we split this world and dualistically separate self and other, is also, ironically, the cause of dukkha, or dissatisfactoriness, or suffering. It's what great truth that the Buddha, amongst others, discovered. So when we lean on the intellectual lens, the realm of the known, the realm of the way of comparison too much, then often we miss or obscure the most intimate experience, the experience of the world before we separate, the experience of the world, experience of our life before we discriminate, before we separate, before we create self and other. Right, just here in the room and here on Zoom, we come in and we're all coming from different places, quite literally, right? And metaphorically, literally. We're all coming from different places, different histories, different journeys, even practically, all packed in a different spot, came in. So there's a lot of difference. The differences are obvious. But then when we sit, or most vitally, when we sit down, we're all very quiet, sit still, and then just enter into being present and aware. Then those differences become irrelevant and start to fall off, right? And then there's the expression in the room, in a together practice, a sangha practice. There's the expression of oneness. Right? Tangibly, there's sameness. The same. We're all experiencing the same world, the same life, really the same awareness. It's reflected in us differently, and that's where the separation then begins. But at its core, fundamentally, this awareness that we all are is one awareness, which is extraordinary. But then as soon as we get into terms like oneness or sameness and difference or duality and non-duality, even to say non-duality, that's a dualistic term. Right, that's our problem. It's like then you got duality and non-duality. There's a funny story I came across in a Buddhist story where there's an elder monk and a younger monk walking through the forest, and the younger monk is very mindful and deeply connected in this walking through this forest, noticing everything. And then it suddenly strikes him, and he says to the elder monk, "My goodness, it's all one. Everything is one. It's all one. I've realized oneness." And the elder monk smiles and says, "Yes." And then they walk a little further, and the younger monk sees a tiger walking down the trail toward them. And he turns to speak to the elder monk, but the elder monk has run up a tree. and so the younger monk says, what are you doing? You know, it's all one." And the elder monk just says, "Yes, but the tiger doesn't know that." Right? So, I mean, if we have a concept of oneness, right, we make a concept out of oneness, that we're all everything, there's no problem, we're all one, the world is all one, you know, then that in itself becomes a conceptual trap. The world is one. This experience is one happening. But within that happening, tigers eat things, right? There's all of the division too. So oneness and two-ness, it's not like separate realms, but different perspectives of a way to experience this life. And in our lives, if you're anything like me, busy, 100 things, 1,000 things, ups and downs, things to manage, responsibilities to be taken care of, run, you know? And all of the difficulties that come from navigating our experience. And it's exhausting. So just simply, in a very vital way, to have time where we can just stop. To stop and truly sit down, stop and reset. In a very practical way, it's very nurturing to the body-mind to return to zero, return to what's fundamental. And we do that somewhat in the depths of sleep at night. There's kind of a reboot in that way, right? But sitting is that kind of conscious reboot or a conscious reset, right? Where we come in, we sit, and there's always perhaps that chop and churn in the mind, right? And it's so easy to become entangled with that content, especially if that content feels compelling and important. It's yelling with urgency. You know, oh, when I get out of here, I got to go by so-and-so and pick up a whatever it is, right? And if we're really deeply entangled with that aspect of mind, then we're always on the wheel. Right? Kind of like that, always running on that wheel, chasing the next thing. This moment is just a springboard to the next moment. You've got to get ready for the next thing. And you miss this now. Right? So the art of sitting really is to come into this presence, which is not something we have to generate or create. It is the fundamental nature of the world is fullness and stillness. So we allow, just don't run, add to the mind, but just allow things to be as they are. Allow, and let the body and mind truly sit and rest. And when we undertake that practice and we have the discipline to make that really a part of our lives, then something simple but profound takes place where more and more you're a person of presence. You're a person who's here, alive now, expressing the world. And a person of presence is someone who is engaged in their life, engaged in the environment, available for the world, available for people, available to help. So in our koan here, I'll read the preface. When food comes, fill the mouth. All right, so far so good, right? When sleep comes, close the eyes. Still doing good, all right. When washing your face, scrub your nose. When taking off straw sandals, you touch your feet. At such times, if you miss the point, take a light and search hard in the depths of the night. How will you meet this? And our main case, attention, a monk asked Joshu, Zen teacher Joshu, your student has just entered this monastery. Please, teacher, instruct me. Joshu said, did you finish your rice? The monk replied, I have finished eating. Joshu said, then wash your bowls. And as simple and straightforward as that. So here we have, it's one of the great teachers in Zen, Joshu, said that he was very precise and elegant and able to express very well with words. Many of the great Tang Dynasty teachers would express with in many different ways, and words are perhaps the most dangerous teaching device. Right? Words really have a power to mislead. And words always, they sound different. The same words are taken differently by each of us when we hear something. But Joshu was apparently very adept with language. He's a teacher at this point, living perhaps in a monastery, in a teaching temple. Although he never had a lot of students. You read they good at keeping records even back in those days, and it said that Joshu's place was very vigorous. He never had many students, and part of it was he foregoed a lot of maintenance. He didn't want to fix things. But right, it said that he sat in a chair to teach, and one of the legs of his chair broke, and so he just replaced it with a piece of firewood, and then tied the firewood in place of a leg, and then made that out of a chair. That was good enough for him. And it said that also a corner of the meditation hall, the roof leaked, and then eventually snow would come in through that corner. So then he just didn't sit in that corner, but he didn't fix the roof. He just let things very much erred on the side of letting things be as they are. But you could see that would be quite a difficult place to practice. There's actually a recorded, it's called the Song of Joshu, and it's like a long poem, which he comments on many things. And at that point, he was alone, living at a temple, and he lived alone. He didn't have any students, and he said that the only people who came were two people from the village, who would sometimes come to sit with him, but he suspected that they only came for the tea, because he made tea. So even one of the great Zen masters in history, just maybe most of the time sat alone or just knew a few people. That was toward the end of his life. In this, he's teaching, and perhaps at a fuller monastery, and then a student enters or comes to a place of practice, right? And am I right? So, are you new? Did somebody come for the first time today? Yeah, welcome. Thanks for coming. Yeah, so you're in this position, right? You come into a new place. It's like, what do we do? What do we do? Fortunately, it's like, well, you just sit there. Right? That's just so you don't have to have a very full orientation in that sense, right? But then we realize that what might come as a shock when we begin is sitting there for 30 minutes can seem like quite a long time. And even when we practice for quite some time, for length of time like that, 30 minutes might seem long. And we might find it long. We might comment on that and say, oh gosh, how long's gone now? What do you think? 15, 20 minutes? We might say that in our mind. Because me is busy. Me has things to be getting on with, or things I might rather do. Right? That me sense. But me, is never really at rest for long. Me is always involved in the ups and downs of the world. Right? So when you come to sit, we let go of I, me, and the me, I agenda, and the laundry list of things that need to be done. We can let I, me have some thoughts about some things, and smile at that, and okay, very good, carry on, but not going to engage. But really the great shift that happens in meditation when we sit down, arrange for body, is you can then let go and rather than sit, be sat. Right? So it's me, I gets to the seat and creates the conditions. We've got a chair here, it's got the roof, everything's good. And now, once we start and the bell is struck, there's nothing more for me to do. There's really nothing to be done for me, I. Right? We can let that aspect of the self that's always looking for the next thing, just let that one rest. And then let the world reveal itself as your body and mind. This is like being sat. Right? There's nothing to do now, just sit, but you already sat, so there's no sitting required, it's already happening. There's nothing required than to just allow everything to be as it is. That's difficult for human beings. We like to fill in the space and get busy with that time. But if we learn to sit and to truly to let go and just be sat, then we can find rest. Then you find the Buddha's seat. Then you can find real refuge in stillness and in presence. And the mind and the body will thank you for it later, because it is a nourishing practice for the nervous system, for the body. Sometimes it's tough on the body with the posture. That's another thing. You have to find how we can do that. But once we are settled, then it is a powerful salve to let everything go and to just be. But the monk has come all of this way to practice with Joshu and wants some instruction. There's another teacher in this era, Ganto, where somebody comes to the temple there and says, I've just arrived. He comes to the gate and says, I've just arrived. How do I enter the monastery? And Ganto says, do you hear the sound of a creek? The monk says, yeah, I can hear it. He says, enter that way. It's a good Zen teaching. How do I enter the monastery? Do you hear the sound of the running water, the creek? Yeah, enter that way. So this is good solid instruction for us as meditators. When we come along to practice, how do I understand? How do I realize the Dharma? How do I experience deeper realization or liberation in this practice and in this life? How do I find greater support for this journey? Do you feel the light chill of the room? Enter that way. Do you feel your body in the chair, in the seat? Enter that way. This is the only way, the straight way. So the monk, in this case, asked Joshu, I've just entered the temple. Please instruct me. So it's, obeying the forms. It's like showing up for your first day of work. So it's like, okay, what do I do? Give me, and then you need some kind of orientation. And rather than sending him to HR, Joshu says, did you finish your rice? Have you eaten? Did you finish your rice? So a simple life of a Zen, in this case, a Buddhist practitioner in this way. Right? Just simple food served in a bowl. It said that the Buddha had one bowl and would beg for alms and would journey from village to village, and offerings were made, and you would eat whatever was put in your bowl. And that may be, we're not sure, but that may be what eventually caused the Buddha's death, from eating something that was spoiled. Not sure. Right? But the important part is asking and taking whatever is given, not refusing anything. At temples in this time, they were careful to make sure that people were sincere practitioners. Had to be, because if you think about that era, if you could go to a monastery and just get your kind of 3 square meals a day and some sleep and meditate, that might seem like a good life choice, like a good option. So they would test people who were first coming to the temple to make sure they were sincere. So Joshu asks in a practical way, have you eaten your rice? But there's a deeper implication to this question. Often it's that way in Zen. There's kind of like a surface meaning and a deeper meaning. Which is also the same meaning. Right? So on the surface, have you eaten your rice? For each one of us, look at the nature of rice in that way. It's supporting, it's a staple. Right? It's a solid staple. Might not be the most exciting food, but it's kind of a very key staple ingredient. Something that supports you. So in a kind of more of a Dharma implication to this question, asking the monk in this case, have you absorbed the fundamentals? Have you absorbed the fundamentals of what it is, the heck it is that we're doing in this practice? Have you eaten your rice? Right? Sitting for 30 minutes is eating rice in that way. It's absorbing the good solid nutrients, supportive, but can be a little dull. You might like a little soy on your rice, but there's soy sauce or something, but I'm afraid not, sitting is plain rice. Right? It shows up as it often. Sometimes, there's a little flavor in it. Right? But it's, plain rice is very supportive. It's like when we sit, can we be satisfied, or are we satisfied with things as they are? As human beings, a human, again, that I, me, is dissatisfied often with things as they are. I know I am dissatisfied with things as they are. I would like things to be a little different, dang it, right? That is our human experience. We live in this great impermanent world, and it appears as it does. The world appears as it does, and it's not the world we want. It doesn't conform to our preferences. No matter how wonderfully inspired and virtuous our preferences may be, the world does not conform to how we want it to be. And so that is a key cause of difficulty for us as humans, to want things to be different than they are. That goes very deep. And for good reason, because there is a lot of suffering in the world. There is injustice. There is inequity. So it is not necessarily negative to want things to be different than they are. But when we look into the world of people, whether we look back here like 1,500 years or look now, we see the world of people is messy and difficult, and there is strife. Right? This human condition is no joke. There's a lot of suffering inherent in this human condition. So Dharma practice is consistent with the Buddha's right view in the Eightfold Path. See things as they are. Accept, allow, understand the world as it is first. Not how we want it to be. We can get to that. We'll get to that really soon, right? We'll get to that part. But unerringly, our starting position is to see things as they are, to allow the world to be as it is. And that it doesn't fall in our laps naturally. It requires practice. Naturally as human beings, we're always we're on this wheel, picking and choosing, attachment and aversion, wanting things to be different. Right? But to come off the wheel is to return to the center, that still point. No matter how fast the wheel is turning, at the center it's always still. That's our meditation practice. The mind might be really busy, you might be thinking about all kinds of things. My mind's that way. It's like I've always had a busy mind. Like I'm thinking about all kinds of things like that's why I have to sit. I have to get into, right? Because it's just go, go, go. Much of the time. And if I wait for it to be quiet, well, then my practice is really conditional. If practice or sitting is only when things are calm and there's no thought and I feel good, then it's always conditional. But true meditation, true Dharma practice in stillness is unconditional. It's unconditional presence. Unconditionally as it is, however that is. With the judgment and the preferring mind dropped off. So your mind might be running 100 miles a minute. That's fine. Let it run. Let it run. Let it play. Feeling these emotions, feeling these feelings. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be as it is. I look around and, I'll glance up and just see. I like to tell myself it's just see how people are doing. It's probably just a little bit bored. And and just look around. Everybody's sitting so still and quiet. It's like that way on the retreats. The Zen Center, everybody it's just like, oh gosh, okay. And you have that feeling like you're the only one who's having a hard time or having a busy mind or wondering how long's gone, And yet, so it'll appear a certain way, but on the inside, that there's 25, 30 unique, universes of experience involved in all kinds of things. So, and that's just fine. That's just fine. We're all human. But when we come into a place of practice or we find the Dharma in this way, we're human, subject to the human condition, but we're also all Buddhas. Baby Buddhas. A Zoom room full of baby Buddhas. Slowly maturing. Right? Whether that's over 5, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 years makes no difference. So have you eaten your rice? And the monk says, yes, I have. Again, on the surface, this guy could have just been like, yeah, I came in and I went straight to the kitchen, to be honest. And it's been a long journey at my rice before I came to see you. Something as practical as that. But again, in a Dharma question, have you absorbed the fundamentals? Do you know what it is that we're doing, what we're involved in here? Yeah, I have. Yeah, I understand something about the Dharma. I understand something about mindfulness, enlightenment, realization. Yeah. And then Joshu says, then wash your bowl. Then wash your bowl. Right? And now there's a very natural, practical element that's going on here. That's what kind of makes the koan so beautiful. Right now we're in this kind of, we're in the holiday season. Maybe it's family commitments when you've got to give a gift, so however that is for you. And often at this time it's very difficult for very many people. Very difficult for very many people. People wondering how they're going to get through this period of time. Right? And so, I think like dukkha it's an elevated time for practice around this kind of season too. Right? Like as everything is so busy. How do we meet it? How do we practice with that? The way of the Dharma is always the way of this now. What's next? What's here now? What is this now, and how do I match this? You know, in this sense, you know, you eat your rice or you eat your meal like you have your dinner, and then you wash your bowl. Or at least rinse it and put it in the dishwasher. Right? But there's a natural sequence to all of our human activities that hasn't changed in thousands of years or 10,000 or in tens of thousands of years. Said in the preface, you know, when you're sleepy, you go to bed. When you put food in your mouth, you swallow it down. And so these just everyday activities, but as Dharma practitioners, we bring mindful awareness to these activities, and complete in a natural flow, complete this one thing at a time. How's the holidays going to go? How's New Year's going? When so-and-so flies in, whatever is going on, mind is busy with these concerns, and yet the most important thing is always this now, what's happening here. And we're always in the right place, and it's always the right time to match and to take care of the activity of right now. Just in that natural flow. I mean, a great advantage to monastic practice is keeping things simple. Few activities, and then just doing those activities. Retreats are modeled in that way. There's just these continuation of these basic activities. The challenge is greater for us in living in a chaotic kind of modern lifestyle. Right? More ingredients, more things to do, but the same principle is working. What is the activity now, and what is the appropriate way to carry it out? With a heavy bias toward what is present and real now. Because a tendency, we get stuck futurizing, we get stuck past dwelling, kind of split ourselves off. And so, a lot of the plain rice of our practice is keep it simple, come back, experience this now. Experience this. So when it's time to sit, it's time to sit. When the bell's rung and it's time to stretch the legs, stretch the legs. And take refuge and rest in this now. This now. Right? And what's next and what's to come, that will be taken care of. That'll be taken care of. But if we find ourselves leaning into that realm of what's next too much, then come back to this bare bones, straightforward practice. And for the monk, have you eaten your rice, or do you know what Dharma practice is? Yes, I do. Wash your bowl. Well, this is good Zen advice. Do you think you understand something about what we're doing? Do you understand the Dharma? Do you feel that perhaps you may be enlightened or have some attainment? Yeah, wash that down the sink. Wash those ideas away. Anywhere that you place yourself in the spiritual journey, any marker that you put up, right, that says, yes, I'm this way, they are that way. Or I'm this way, but I would like to be that way. Or I used to be this way. Wash those, clean that out, wash that bowl. Wash that bowl. So, I encourage myself, in that sense of just in going forward through the holiday season into a new year. It's all just so darn impermanent, isn't it? It's just something, in a couple of weeks we'll be in the new year, then it'll be February, then it'll be March, and next thing we'll be coming in here talking about how hot it is rather than how cool it is. Right, around and around we go. Everything, it's on that impermanent, a great fact of impermanence. But what is the thread? What is it that is always the same, never moves, is always available throughout that impermanence? That's what we illumine. Right? In the preface it says, if you miss the point, take a light and search hard in the depths. That's a key aspect of meditation. Take the light of your awareness and let it shine into all the dark corners. Let it shine into the depths. Because, again, as a human condition, we just so closely identify with the content, what we're doing, and what we think about things. Right? But there's such a broad, vast depth of experience that's always going on now, that we also are. But practice is shining a light there, illumining what's real and what's present now. I'd like to open it up for question, for comment, for how this strikes you, anything it brings up for you, how you're doing, like whatever you'd like to share, comment, ask. Please feel encouraged. For those on Zoom too, please, if you have anything, please, you can raise a hand. Well, I'm going to pass around. I know we've gone a couple of minutes over, and if you have I learned the words hard stop on Zoom. I mean, on Zoom, if you have a meeting and you go like, I've got a hard stop at noon. It sounds really like important, I don't have to explain anything. I've just got a hard stop. So if anyone has a hard stop and needs to go, you will not be judged harshly. But if you don't mind being a couple of minutes over, maybe I could send these. Okay, I'm back. And for those on Zoom, there's probably some very smart way in which I could get this and put it into the chat. But I haven't prepared well enough to do that. So I'm going to read Ian's metta statement, chant, and maybe we can do that together in the room. And for the future ones, I'll put this into a doc so that I can throw it in the chat as well, and we can share it in Zoom. But for those listening on Zoom, we're gonna read this together here. Okay, going forth into this world, so in need of light. May I bring all the kindness and wisdom I embody to each being and each situation that I meet. May the power of my practice today strengthen my resolve to be an agent of peace and justice in this world. Going forth together into this world, so in need of light, may we together bring all the kindness and wisdom we embody to each being and each situation that we meet. May the power of our practice today strengthen our resolve to be agents of peace and justice in this world. We dedicate our practice for the liberation of all beings, the great, the small, the wise, the ignorant, the powerful and the powerless. May all beings be liberated from sorrow and loss, hatred and injustice, scarcity and want, and every form of suffering. May our practice today be a prayer for peace, and may it benefit all beings without exception. Thank you. Thank you for being patient on Zoom too. I was remiss in not putting any links into the chat. I know that the end of year note went out, and if we could all consider that in our kind of end of year giving, so that we continue to support the organisation, so we can meet this way into 2025, and I hope well beyond that too. So thank you, everyone. Thanks everyone for joining.